Welcome to our channel, The Audible Review. Today we're doing a deep dive into William Lane Craig's really influential book, Reasonable Faith. We've got a stack of sources reviewing it, and our mission is, well, to unpack them. Can faith really be reasonable? Or are belief and logic, always going to be at odds? We're looking at sources that argue they actually strengthen each other.
Yeah, it's a really interesting project because reasonable faith isn't just saying believe anyway. It's trying to build this rational case for belief in God. It draws on philosophy, quite a bit of history, theology too. The aim is really to understand why someone might believe, moving past that blind faith idea.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The sources really highlight these key arguments Craig uses, showing that faith, true faith maybe, invites logic in. It doesn't reject it.
Exactly. And what's interesting is how the sources sort of break this down. They talk about these major lessons, starting with that core idea. Faith and reason are enemies. Reason can actually be like a fulfillment of faith.
Right, so let's get into the classic philosophical arguments he uses. What's the first big piece of logic the sources point to?
Well, the big one is the cosmological argument, specifically his version of the Kalam cosmological argument. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources emphasize this idea. The universe had a beginning. It can't be infinitely old.
An infinite past causes logical problems.
Yeah, the problem of a completed actual infinite, basically. So if it began, it needed a cause. And that points toward a creator, something beyond time and space, uncaused itself.
Okay, so a beginning implies a cause outside the system. Makes sense logically. But the sources say the next critical pillar is morality. What does this all mean for our, universal sense of right and wrong? Because that feels different.
It is a different angle. Craig argues, and the sources echo this, that our deep-seated sense of right and wrong isn't just like a social habit or evolutionary quirk. It feels objective, that certain things are really wrong. The argument is that this objective sense points towards something transcendent.
A moral lawgiver, is that the idea?
That's the term used, yeah. It suggests our moral compass isn't just internal preference, but rooted in an objective moral reality, which implies a source for that reality, a lawgiver.
But couldn't you argue that secular ethics, humanism maybe, gives us that objective sense? Why does it have to be transcendent?
Well, the critique that Craig makes, which the sources pick up on, is that secular systems are good at describing what's useful for society, what helps us get along, but they struggle, arguably, to ground ultimate moral obligation. Like, why ought we act morally even when it's not convenient? If objective moral duties do exist, the argument goes they seem to require a commander, an objective source. So it leans towards a personal, transcendent being again.
Okay, so that covers the intellectual side, the arguments. But the sources also really emphasize that faith is personal, too. It's not just a logic puzzle. How does the intellectual evidence connect with personal experience in this model?
That's key. The material stress, they absolutely go hand in hand. Reason builds the foundation, makes belief plausible, even probable perhaps. But personal experience, that inner witness or conviction, is what gives it life, moves it from assent to, well, trust. It invites you to see belief not as some leap in the dark, like people often say, but maybe more like a step into light that's already been illuminated by reason. It respects both the mind and the heart,
Right. And he uses all these pillars, the logic, the morality, the experience, to defend Christianity specifically. What's the final conclusion the sources offer about Christian truth claims?
Craig's position, as reflected in the sources, is that Christianity, when properly understood, provides the most coherent and comprehensive answer to those deep questions. Questions about purpose, morality, existence itself. By including historical evidence, too, like arguments for the resurrection alongside the philosophical stuff, he argues it creates the most complete worldview, one that explains more of the data, you could say, with fewer sort of tacked-on assumptions. It provides coherent truth.
So the final takeaway for you, the learner, seems to be this. Engaging with this material, it feels like having a really deep, honest conversation. One that suggests reason doesn't have to weaken faith. It might actually deepen it. Maybe, just maybe, the most reasonable thing we can do is to believe, but with both our hearts and our minds engaged.
And this does raise a really interesting question to think about further. If our moral compass, our sense of objective right and wrong, is actually rooted in a transcendent lawgiver, what does that mean for modern secular ethics when they claim ultimate authority? What are the implications there? Definitely something to mull over.
And do like, share, and subscribe to our channel.